almost got it. Good morning, grinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD, if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Thursday, September 7th. And I got Will Priester here, Chief Justice, as we talk about primarily today, this morning, about the NFL Showdown slate for tonight, Chiefs versus Lions. We also got some MLB action, a small slate tonight, some props, some pick'em, a little bit of everything. Talk to you a little bit about the tools, the premium content here at RotoGrinders. So hit that thummy thumb button. You know how much I like the thummy thumbs in the morning. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Will, first game of the NFL season. Are you excited about NFL, or you're more excited to not have to worry about MLB? I'm done. MLB, we get tired of after the whole summer.
Not me.
I'm ready for something new.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely ready for NFL, but I think the exciting thing for me with NFL is now I have, especially with me being in the props pick'em streets, I have more things to add with other things that I will like. So, I'm still going to be in the MLB streets looking for, some of my top plays, but now I get NFL to add into that, which should, Blender, and I'm hoping, help to increase my ROI. My ROI has been fine, obviously, over the past couple of months. I track them, obviously, but I'm hoping, with NFL here, it is good to break up the monotony, not have the same thing every day. But I'm going to write enough MLB out until the end. It's my bread and butter.
And people can check out your stuff in our Discord, Chiefs Prop Shop. It's not even a premium channel. You don't even have to be a RotoGrinders premium member to even be a part of it. As long as you have a RotoGrinders account, you could get into our Discord. And let me tell you that for the audience, that prop shop goes 24/7. I mean, Will, there are people. I mean, dude, I'll wake up to go to the bathroom at like 2:30 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and I'll go. Let's see what's going on in the RotoGrinders Discord. And I'm primarily checking, let's see the Blitz channel, the NFL, MLB. I have a channel, Blender's Game Theory.
Absolutely.
Did anyone post a question for me there? And dude, I don't see a time when your channel name isn't like lit up as far as being active messages, and they're it's what's going on, Asian esports and European tennis, and
yeah,
it's just a lot of times it's chaos in there. A lot of times it's people trying to get numbers before they move, and then they don't, and then they get limited, and then this thing, can I pair this with that? I don't even know how you handle it.
Well, listen, I try to handle it with as much grace as I can. We did recently try to get it back to a little bit more manageable. It just got kind of toxic in there for a little bit. And by toxic, I mean, it's younger guys, they like to troll, and that's fine. Everybody's going to tilt, everybody's going to troll. We kind of went to the extreme. So I think we've got it back to a manageable, positive place now, which is kind of how we started. And, I always tell everyone, look, I don't try to be the smartest person in the room. And so there's some other guys in there that are really good. And I mean, you learn that if you've been there, over time. But I'm just all about the community. So the thing is, we can all make money together in the pick'em streets and be fine. I'm not trying to take away from you taking down the showdown by yourself tonight. We're all just trying to make money against the sites. And so when you keep that mentality, it can definitely change your process in terms of how you view the process of others, because sometimes we think we're smarter than everyone. And guess what? The secret is we're really not. The smartest person know how to trust other people, like yourself, like Noto, like Chop, And I'll tell the short story that I'm done, but, I didn't start out in DFS. I started out in the financial industry. And I sat my butt down and got better by going to Roto Academy and reading articles and listening to people that were smarter than me. And when you learn that, you become a good person. You become someone that can be a resource because you just use the resources of others.
Right. One of the things in business that I've always learned in running my entrepreneurial projects is that that stick to your core competencies and outsource everything else to someone that is their specialty. So, I know we talk about daily fantasy sports, we talk about props, we talk about pick'em, we talk about all this stuff. Like, yes, I was always a sports fan. Like, I come across as, I don't watch the games or anything like that. It's because I'm outsourcing that. During NBA season, I'm not going to be the one that figures out the rotations for these teams. That's what
the projections team for. Yeah.
Right. That's what we have a projections team for. That's why we have Andy and SBK and Bob Reeves and Alan and everyone behind the scenes doing that. So they'll do that throughout the day. And then I could show up and, here are the numbers. Right. Now it's time to make my lineups and my core competencies in game theory. So it's like, what are other people going to do? How do I leverage that information? And I just outsource everything to everyone else. So like with props and pick them, like, who do you like today? It's like, I'm just going to look at the numbers from the people that build the models better than I could possibly do. And then, maybe if you wanted some context, we do have a props and pick 'em package here at RotoGrinders. And you could check out, what people have posted. And Will, I know you post a lot of pick 'em stuff.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, we'll talk a little bit about pick 'em for MLB and NFL tonight a little bit later. But you mentioned the most important thing, that you're going to let me win solo tonight. Like, I'm going to be able to find that unique lineup that isn't going to be duped. The question is, Will, I think the biggest question on this slate tonight is, will that lineup contain Travis Kelce or will it not contain Travis Kelce? And what is your plan? I mean, obviously we'll get inactives. Like if he's inactive, we'll get that 90 minutes before and you don't have to worry about it. I think that we need to talk out like what happens if he's active. I mean, he's 12K. If we see here, like the blitz projections actually have him out and our RG projections have him in. Mm-hmm. And even in if you're a premium member, you get this like showdown sim.
Which is a really good tool. Really good tool.
Right. I'll just show a little bit over here. We have a showdown content hub. He's even included all the statistics on the simulations with Kelce in and Kelce out. So you could weigh that this afternoon if you're a premium member. Obviously, click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. RotoGrinders Combo Premium. You get everything. But let's not talk about whether or not Kelce is going to be active or not. Mm-hmm. I think the more important thing is if he's active, do you treat him like a 12K wide receiver, or how do you handle everything? I mean, would you expect if he's active to play the normal complement of snaps and usage?
So let's do this, Blender. I'm going to answer your question with how I'm going to approach the slate, and I think it'll all tie in. So for me, and I think we've been around each other long enough. You kind of know my style of play because people do have a style of play at DFS. Believe it or not, I'm taking a full fade on Kelce whether he's in or out. Well, obviously, but I'm saying even if he's in, I'm going full fade. I'm just going to get rid of it no matter what. I'm going to, let's say, trust the fact that I think this is a bigger injury than I think they're trying to make it because it's week 1. And I'm taking the full fade. And I'm going to ride the Detroit side. For full disclosure, I picked Detroit to win this game prior to the Kelce injury. If you listen to Food for Thought, we recorded that on Monday night before there was even a Kelce injury. I was taking Detroit to win this game anyway. So I'm going to be much heavier on the Detroit side in Showdown than the Chiefs. And that's not saying, hey, that's not saying I'm not playing Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, I'm going to have Mahomes. I'm going to have Chiefs players. But my scripts are going to be built around Detroit winning this game. And so hopefully I'm going to be unique enough anyway. Getting back to your primary question, what am I doing with Kelce? If he's in, I'm still going full fade, and I'll live with those results. I'm perfectly fine if he comes out and gets 30 fantasy points tonight. Not going to bother me one bit, but I'm going with the full fade.
Because the question really isn't I mean, the two questions that you have with if Kelce is active is how much is he going to play, and if he, depending on how much he plays, is he worth 12K?
Correct.
Like, it's not this type of thing where Kelce's maybe he's going to play 50% of the snaps, but he's 6K, right, or something, like where he's cheap. Like, dude, he's priced 200 less than Mahomes.
Yeah.
So for Kelce to make like the optimal like nut lineup in Showdown,
he's got to have 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Right. He's got to outperform Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's got to outperform Jared Goff and Gibbs and Montgomery and Pacheco and all these other guys. Even if Kelce goes 3 for 42 with 1 touchdown at 12K, he may not make. I mean, unless it's a really low scoring game.
Right.
Like 12K for what? 11 points?
I mean, 3 for 42 and 1 touchdown would mean for him to be completely optimal.
13 points. So like.
And very low passing yards on both sides.
Right.
Which I don't think that's the outcome of this game. I mean, look, we've seen some rough games in our days, Blender, because we've done a lot of Showdown shows together over the years. We've seen some rough ones. I don't see any scenario where both of these quarterbacks are 150 or under, unless like it just turns into a tsunami of bad weather out of nowhere. I don't see any way either of these quarterbacks are under 200.
Well, the second question on Kelce is related to ownership, and that's more of my style of playing. That at 12K, if he's active, we have to expect the field isn't going to be stupid. Like, if you told me that the field was going to play Kelce at an ownership as if he was fully healthy, like, let's say he was fully healthy. I mean, 12K Kelce could be 60% owned, right?
Oh, yeah.
In the flex,
absolutely.
And 15% in the captain. That's not going to happen. Even if he's active, that's not going to happen. So at what point, even at 12K, could Kelce potentially be worthwhile playing? I know it's much higher risk, much higher variance.
Yeah.
Like, Will, and the extreme example, if I told you Kelce in the captain was going to be less than 1% owned, and in the flex less than 10% owned.
I have to play him now. Like, I have to. I can't, because here's why. He could very well, and this is an outcome, which is why, you look at the tools, like we deal in outcomes, and that's statistics and probable. I'm not going to get into probability right now, but my point is,
well, you're for the range of outcomes, but the point is that, like, there is an outcome where he's active and he just plays as Travis Kelce, right? And he plays 95% of the snaps, goes for 8 for 120 and 2 touchdowns. I think that's a less probable outcome, but it's not probable. It doesn't not exist.
Let's talk through this one as well, Blender. Here's something that's less probable, but probably more probable than 8 for 120 and 2. He plays 50% of the snaps, but 100% of the red zone snaps, and still catches 3 touchdowns for like 30 yards.
Or that shovel pass, or they do that shovel pass crap.
Right. He comes across the line, they're 2 yards out. That's 7.2 points. Just off that play alone.
I mean, the issue here, Will, is that even if he scores, the problem is that he's 12K. I mean, like,
right.
he still needs to put up a normal Travis Kelce type of score.
Absolutely.
Regardless.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%.
But here's the question, Will. You're full fading Kelce. You're going, I don't care if he's active or inactive, right? Mm-hmm. I'd much rather, from a game theory perspective, hope that he's active and then play less of him. Right?
Absolutely.
You'd much rather have people play him and you fade him than him just being inactive and who cares?
Yeah, absolutely.
If he's active, does that mean if you're fading him that you're gonna play the situation that, like, Noah Gray gets 75% of the snaps? Like, where does this ball go? The Chiefs may literally have 7 receivers active.
They do that when Kelce's playing.
Right.
So that's the other thing too, Blender, right? Like, if you go and just look at like their historical stuff, even when Kelce was there last year, they still have 2 catches for Juju Smith-Schuster, a catch for, MVS, 2 catches for Noah Gray. Blake Bell would have a catch. Like, the ball's all over the place. Jerick McKinnon has 4 catches. Isaiah Pacheco has 2 catches. I mean, just
Justin Watson has a 20-yard
catch.
Right.
So it's like they're going to spread it out anyway. I will say, just in terms of coming out of camp, it does look like Sky Moore is going to have a much bigger role this year. But the ownership on him, if Kelce's out, is going to be there anyway. But it does look like he could, and I'm saying could, week 1, we don't know. He could be the next guy in line for target share. But once again, like I said, we don't know that. But I do feel like I know more about Detroit, which is why I'm so heavy on this Detroit side. I will say this, Blender. I will lock Patrick Mahomes in today. And you probably saw that coming. Patrick Mahomes will get the lock button from me. And whether I decide to fade him in the captain or not is still TBD. I'm still trying to kind of work through that. But if I fade him, like, he's 100% going into flex every build I have. And then I just have to decide how much captain or just yes or no. I'm leaning towards no captain Patrick Mahomes right now. The problem is he's got to account for most of his offense, which is what's kind of got me on the fence a little bit at this present recording. But full fade on Kelce, lock button Patrick Mahomes, load up on Detroit. That's where I am. Because Mahomes can go for 30 points, and everybody else in this team could have 10 fantasy points.
Right. To me, that's the more interesting strategic note. Most of my teams that I'm going to build, and I'm not going to build many. I mean, I don't play 150. I'll play 10 to 20 lineups. That I'm playing more of Detroit because of they're much more condensed than the Chiefs are. I don't know if I'm frozen or Will is frozen. It's one of the two. Okay, looks like Will is frozen, but he'll be back in a second. So let me explain. Like, we have that if Kelce's out, if Kelce's completely out, like, the Chiefs have so many places to go. I think even if you think Chiefs are going to win, it's much more likely that Patrick Mahomes has 300 plus yards, 4 touchdowns, but like none of the receivers get like more than 10 points. None of the running backs get more than 10 points. That if it's a competitive enough game, that Detroit, their production is much more narrower. So like my lineups are much more likely to include, like, I'm going to be building as of now with Kelce out. I'm much more likely to build at least 3 Lions into every lineup, if not 4. I'm much more likely to do 2-4 lineups with Patrick Mahomes and captain even, right? A lot of times people play the quarterback and the captain like, oh, you need 2 receivers in the flex. This may be the type of slate where Chiefs score 5 touchdowns. They go to 5 different people, right? Now, everyone is cheap on the Chiefs outside of Patrick Mahomes with Kelce out. But like once you start plugging in this stuff, I mean, I'm much more likely to play Patrick Mahomes like to be a top. It's much more likely that Goff or Amon-Ra St. Brown or even Gibbs or Montgomery score more points than Rashee Rice or Justin Ross or Justin Watson or a lot of those players, because the Chiefs will just literally spread the ball around to everyone. So Will is back.
Yeah.
So I was trying to explain while you were gone that, and I think you were highlighting it with what. Now, you think the Lions are going to win the game. I don't care whether or not the Lions win the game. I think even with the Chiefs winning the game, that they spread the ball around so much that in a showdown format, it's much more likely that Amon-Ra St. Brown and Goff and Gibbs and Montgomery and Marvin Jones, even like some of these guys, like get more raw points than, even though, like, okay, you could go down and get Justin Ross at 1K. And if he gets 2 catches for 20 yards and a touchdown, like, that's 10 points. but he still may only be the 9th or 10th highest scorer on the slate and not make the nut lineup because Jamar Gibbs has 11.5 or Marvin Jones has 12. Like I'm not saying the Lions players necessarily put up a ton of points, but it's quite possible it's quite possible this is a type of game where Patrick Mahomes in the captain and 5 Lions in the flex can be optimal even in a Chiefs win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree 100% because that's how this team is. And I do think the caveat here is if that happens, there's most likely no Travis Kelce at all for sure. Like we have to, so that's just remember that, like, you know, Kelce takes up a good chunk of their fantasy scoring just in general. And so if he's out, like in our minds, we think, well, all that production has to go somewhere. Well, yeah, it does. They spread it out between 10 people. Like that's where all the production goes.
Which makes for good, which truthfully, on a lot of showdown slates with the Chiefs, makes it easier to build less duplicated lineups. Like this is a slate with the amount of Chiefs options there are, your dupe factor, if you're building lineups that are duped like 100 times, like don't do that. Like we have enough options here. Yeah. And as DFix says in the chat on YouTube, which you can obviously chat whenever you want, hit that thumbs up button. Cash on the table isn't even going to differentiate that much because, like, without Kelce in, like, it's quite possible, like, the best projected lineup even leaves like 2K on the table. Now, that doesn't mean you have to get nuts and leave 15K on the table. Yeah, but I think we may see a lot more duplicated lineups with higher salaries. And one way of preventing that type of stuff is using the build settings in the lineup HQ. You could set a min and max salary in here.
Absolutely.
Right? I am showing it on the screen right now. Min salaries, I have 0 to 50,000. Obviously, that's across the board. But if for whatever reason, if you didn't want to play a lineup that is less, there's more than 48,000, you could just type it in and it won't give you one. Now, obviously, that's a hard code in. I mean, there may be some lineups at 48.2, 48.7 that you may want to play. There's a way to limit those. Mm-hmm. But if you want to build certain builds, like what I will do in Lineup HQ is build 300 lineups of different types. So I may build 300 lineups that do spend most of the salary and then look through those and go, is there any ones in here that have a low enough product ownership that maybe I decide to play them? And then maybe I start building a 300 set that maxes out at 48K. I also use these players per team, which is obviously you can use for Classic, but it's not as useful for Classic. It's like, I don't want to play more than 3 Vikings on a 13-game slate is not really something that you usually have to put in. But if I do want to make like 2, let's say I want to make 2 Chiefs, 4 Lions, I'll go in and specifically set max 2 on the Chiefs, max 4 on the Lions, and then run
see what you get. And see what you get.
And then I'll run 1 5s, and then I'll run 3 3s. I'll run 4 2s the other way. And I could run up to 300 of each of these. It sounds, oh my God, you're building so many lineups. Yeah. I'm just looking for 20 lineups that I want to play. And it's quite possible I may have to look through 1,200 lineups in order to find the one. Okay, this one doesn't look like it's going to be duplicated. This one, the product ownership looks low enough. Of course, I have my own tools in Excel as part of theoryofdfs.com. Feel free to check those out in the advanced tools that I just export them from Lineup HQ and I sort them out from there. I trim them down and I see what I want to play, what my diversity, do I want to play? Hey, you don't mind locking people in. Sometimes I'm like, sometimes maybe I play 2 out of 20 lineups that don't have Mahomes, right? Yeah. Which 2 do I want to play?
It's possible.
You could do this in Lineup HQ. You could change your build settings. And one of the features is the players per team tab in the build rules, specially useful for Showdown to build different types of constructions. The only bad point is that the upgrade would be if you're able to like set multiple types and use like almost like the stacks. Yeah, I want 20% 4 2s. I want 30% 3 3s. That would be the perfect world. So if anyone's listening on the dev team, that would be a good addition. But for now,
and I use that for baseball a lot.
Right.
A lot. Let me say this too, Blender, and this is, once again, I always kind of pull this quote out from my DFS historical quote bank that I have in my brain here. And this is old school from JM to Win, and this is something I learned from JM a long time ago, and it's always something that stuck with me in DFS. And this is what he said. Well, it's kind of two quotes, but the first one is, don't be afraid to think for yourself. That was quote number one. Don't be afraid to think for yourself. And then quote number two, and this was more specific to football, when he was doing a football tutorial at one point, he said, don't be afraid to have the imagination, right, to build an outcome that's nothing like no one else is talking about. And really, like, if you think about it, that's DFS, right? If everybody's building the same, then you, especially in Showdown, and this was pre-Showdown, so context is everything. This was pre-Showdown, but in Showdown, if you've got just a little bit of imagination, Blender, you're a lot closer to taking it down than you think. Now, maybe that means you're duped 5 times rather than 100. I'll take the 5-time dupe, no problem. Every day of the week, if I played every Showdown slate and I just had a 5 dupe, even whether it wins or not, I don't care, right? So that's the thing. I don't care if I want first place, but I'm saying if I'm at like 50 and it was only duped 5 times, then guess what? You're on the right path. Just keep sticking and keep having imagination to think about a different outcome. And all you need is one bank for the year. Like if you hit 200,000
for this one, dude, Will, you just need one bank for the decade with these types of contests.
Correct.
You win this solo, that's $1 million.
Exactly. So I just want to point that out because that's something that I've always carried with me throughout my process, and just make sure I keep that top of mind. Like, just have a little bit of imagination to think for yourself, and you'll be fine. And that doesn't mean don't listen to people that are smarter than you. It means don't second guess yourself if you're onto something, especially in DFS. All right, Blender, back to you.
I want to take a mailbag question from JWH in the chat. Send in your questions if you're not watching this live, especially. Send in your questions to our mailbag. There should be a mailbag segment on every show, but if you don't send the questions, we can't do one. So send them in, questions at theoryofdfs.com, and we'll be covering any DFS strategy questions you want on the show. In the chat, JWH asks, Blender, when you play 10 to 20 in Showdown, just curious, given the variance, do you typically enter a 20 entry max or 150 max? To me, it's not the number. It's not the number of entries that matters. It's what the payout structure is. And typically, the flatter the payout structure, the more likely I play more lineups because I retain more equity in the contest. And the more top heavy, I play less lineups. And the size of the contest, like we take a look at this Showdown tonight. Like I think there's a $3.20 max that has, I believe, like 160,000 entries. The main contest is $10 and has like 260,000, 200, like not absurd over that. The first contest, the 20 max, pays 40,000 a first. Okay, and it's Showdown. I don't care what 20th place pays because you're always you can't be profitable really without like binking, without getting the nuts with these size contests. So to me, it's like the type of contest the type of lineup that's gonna bink the 20 max at 150,000 entries, and the one that's gonna win the $10 one at 250,000 entries probably isn't gonna be that different. It may be duplicated 2 or 3 extra times, right? But one contest pays 40K. Let's say it's a 5-way dupe at 40K, right? How much do you make then with a 5-way dupe, an 8-way dupe at 1 million to first? I make way more money, 1 million to first, even though, yes, it's very top heavy, but I'm not playing 150 lineups. I don't need to retain, min cash equity to keep my bankroll going. So to me, like when people say, oh, if you can't do the max, don't play the contest, I think that's lineups are independently plus or minus EV no matter what. You could play one lineup into 150 max with a million entries. The millie coming up, the $5 millie on Sunday, if you wanted to play 2 lineups into it, that's fine. But make those lineups so they could win that contest. That's the only difference. Of don't say, I only have 2 lineups. Let me play everyone that's 15, 20% owned or more. It's like, no, you have to build the riskiest lineups within reason that you can for that contest. And you can only play 2 of them.
Blender, let's talk through that. I think that's a great point that you brought up because, and I think I remember this. I can't remember how long ago it was, but me and you had a discussion slightly offline one night. It was during baseball season. And you know how it is. I think both of us that day, for whatever reason, we ended up on the same types of builds that day, like for whatever reason. And we were just kind of in the MLB chat. I hand built 5 lineups in the $5 GPP, right? Like 5. And I think we were on the White Sox in some odd stack, something crazy we did. And like we didn't come in first, but I think, I don't know, I was 3rd, you were 5th. It was something random. When we talked about it, it was like, well, we just built for the contest. Like that's what we did that day in 5 lineups. And so I'm saying that to say, Blender, I've made just as much money, and everybody can go and check my results, playing one lineup in a 3K contest as I have playing 2 or 3 lineups in a $5 contest, because you just have to understand how it works. Like I don't have.
You're just not going to win them as often. I mean, that's
absolutely.
I mean, the time between, but you're spending less. So like when people will look at like my Twitter feed and go, "Oh, you haven't posted a screenshot in a long time." It's like, dude, if I win 1 GPP a year, that's it. That's all. That's literally all I need, because I don't play 150 entries. Now, I'm not necessarily playing the smaller field stuff where it's a little bit flatter. It's like, no, I'm building large field lineups, playing 10, 20, some 40, 50, depending on the slate and everything. And when you play 150 and it's a 10 and you're spending $1,500 to $3,000 a day, like you need to like win like once a month in order to make up for that. So like, the top volume players, you will see that, and that you could go on downswings, $300,000, $400,000 downswings. I'm avoiding that. It's like, yes, I'm limiting my upside, right? But my downside is that, I'm not going on $100,000 downswings. But you have to realize that, like, DFS at its core, if you're going to play it well, right? Me and you, Will, we've been playing for a long time. I've been playing for, 8 years?
Yeah.
You have to really get accustomed to losing. And knowing that that's the expectation. You're going in every day. They only pay typically top 20-ish% at all in these contests. So
and some of the larger ones now,
4 out of 5 days, that the expectation is that you're going to lose. If you do better than that, you're happy as a pig in shit.
And some of the higher stakes contests now are like 14, 15%. It's crazy.
Right.
So and Blender, I'm glad you said it, because I'm going to parlay that back into something I said earlier in terms of when we were talking about Kelce. And maybe people glossed over this statement, but here's something specific I said which ties into what we talked about. I'm fading Kelce no matter what. If he scores 30 fantasy points tonight, no problem. I'll be right back here for Sunday. Like,
right? Because I always say to people, well, what if Kelce scores 30? And it's like, then you lose. And you go, and then what? It's like, then is the DFS done? Right? Is DFS over? Is after tonight's game, is there no more daily fantasy? Because if there is no more daily fantasy, then I could understand that you need to win today. Yeah, screw you right. The game won't exist tomorrow, right? But the game exists tomorrow. So it's just like the next poker hand, right? Yeah. Just keep on going. So like for the showdown tonight, with you not playing Kelce, I know people, especially if it's inactive, are going to lean towards the MVSs, the Sky Moores, of the world, right? Noah Gray. Do you think that building a lineup that has Sky Moore in it and then replacing Sky Moore with someone like Justin Ross and leaving the rest of the salary on the table, or you build a lineup with MVS and then you just play Rashee Rice, even though he will project lower? Or are you the type of person that's going to pay up to be contrarian because Kadarius Toney is nursing an injury? I'm not sure how many snaps he's going to play, but he may be the similar type to what you mentioned with Kelce, that Kadarius Toney may play the important snaps. And when he's on the field, even if he only plays 20 snaps, they may be plays that are designed specifically for him.
Absolutely. And Blender, and the thing is, that's actually not far-fetched because we saw a little bit of that last year, where if he comes in, they're going to make a conscious effort to get him the ball on most of those snaps. Not all, but a lot of those snaps. I think the way I'm going to approach this slate today, and like I said, we've done shows a lot. Patrick Mahomes gets the lock button, and then I'm going to lock in one more Lion, but I haven't decided who that is yet at 11:40 a.m. my time. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stream everybody else around those pillars. So Mahomes, I can tell you right now, is getting the lock button hands down, no matter what. He's getting the lock button. Once I decide which Lion that I want to lock in, then it's going to get a lot easier for me from there because I'm going to stream all. Have to play Rice. I'm going to have to play because I don't know which one of these guys catches the 40-yard touchdown and maybe 2 or 3 more passes. It could be all of them. It could be none of them. But it's going to be at least 1 or 2 that have nice games. And so I have to stream them because they're not going to have condensed production like the Lions, like some of these other teams that we'll see. Like the Bengals, for instance, we know where the ball's going pretty much every game. We're not going to get that from them.
So from a prop perspective on tonight's slate, I want to highlight the fact that I looked right before, and as Will disappears again, but I looked right before the show, and based on the blitz projections, Josh Reynolds over 26.5 receiving yards, minus 120 on BetMGM, shows a positive edge. Now, if you were a RotoGrinders member, either a combo premium or props and pick'em member, we could go down. I'm looking at the props and pick'em for NFL that I'm scrolling down. I see Josh Reynolds over 20.5 receiving yards, minus 115. He posted this yesterday afternoon. So at some point yesterday, this line was down at 20.5 somewhere. And then also, I believe Kyle posted, Kyle Murray on the early this morning. Josh Reynolds over 25.5 receiving yards at minus 115. So you see that these lines move, right? So getting them early. I mean, I say this so often when it comes to betting. Price, the number and the price matters more than the outcome, right? Doesn't matter. Oh, Josh Reynolds, if he puts up 40 yards, it's not going to matter. Yeah, you're right. It's not going to matter. Right, but what happens when he goes for 24 yards? There's a percentage of time he catches 24 yards, and you had 26.5, and you lose. But if you got it at 20.5 on the over, you would have won. Okay? Add that up for the whole course of the season, especially if you're making 5, 10 bets a day, more than that. Add that up. It's quite possible that a good 5 to 7% of your bets, if you would have gotten the earlier number, would have won. And then you also have to deal with the price of I'm gonna bet this at minus 120 when you could have gotten it at minus 105, right? 15 cents better if you would have gotten it 10 hours earlier, right? Add that up. 5, 10, 20 bets a day on average for whatever amount of time. That adds up to a lot of money. The margins on sports betting for professionals that make money profitably throughout the year is small. We're not talking. No one has 40% ROIs in sports betting, right? 5, 10%. You're great. 12%. You're doing wonderful. So getting them early, getting the best price, getting the best number matters more than showing up a half an hour before a game starts and Oh, what's good on? Oh, what's good on Prize Picks, Will? I mean, even in your prop shop, Will. I mean, MLB today. I mean, I look at Prize Picks and Underdog like before I go to sleep, like to see if there's anything if they put up an MLB, they put up a strikeout number or a pitching outs number that is off. I look at the bat projections, I look at our plate IQ projections, and I go, yeah, this one is a full strikeout off. Like let me hit this now, and you Will, how often is it more or less than half the time that you'll wake up in the morning and the number has moved in your favor?
Probably almost every time.
Well, that's the point that I'm like, half the time you're like, okay, I'm gonna bet this pitcher, over 6.5, over 7 strikeouts, over 6 strikeouts. You wake up and it's now 6.5. Right?
Yeah.
You do I'm going to do under 5 strikeouts, and then you wake up and it's 4.5. Right?
Yeah.
Or you look between the sites. You look at Underdog, you look at Sleeper, you look at Vivid, you look at Prize Pick, you look across the board, and you go, oh, there's one site that left up a stale number. Take the under there, and then don't take it on another site. So, like for MLB tonight, I want to hit on some unless you have also some NFL stuff for just tonight's game.
Well, I've already put my Prize Picks videos up.
You're up.
Yeah.
Is that available on YouTube?
Yeah, and I did that yesterday. So I put it up yesterday for today's game.
Okay. What do you? So a sneak preview.
So I'll go ahead and give you one since I see Grant. I've actually got Mahomes at 2.5 passing, rushing, or receiving yards. So they gave us an out.
Okay. Is this on Underdog or Prize Picks?
This is Prize Picks. This is on Prize Picks. They gave us an out. So having that extra ability for him to rush a touchdown in as well, I thought was pretty advantageous versus just the passing. So we got 2.5 pass, rush, or receiving. Now, I'm not expecting him to catch a passing touchdown, but we've seen stranger things with Kansas City. So I definitely I think that one was advantageous, especially since I'm projecting him to pick up the bulk of the load on offense. Like if they don't score touchdowns, I lose, but I'm expecting him to get it done. And so yeah, that's one of my preview plays. I will say this
about MLB. Do you got anything for MLB? Because I all I know is that I hit last night. I hit Ryan Pepio under 5. I hit Luis Castillo under 7, and I hit Max Fried over 5.5. And on Prize Picks, Pepio's down to 4.5, Castillo's down to 6.5, and Fried's up to 6. And that's a good sign that I'm good. But it doesn't mean, to be clear, that means you don't take them now. Like that's the key. It's like it's 11:48 in the morning Eastern time, and the games aren't until like 7 hours. But the value is gone, right?
Yeah.
So getting on them early. Is there anything that's currently up on Underdog or Prize Picks that now that people may be looking late could possibly find some value in?
Right. I definitely think giving Erod a shot at 5.5 strikeouts against the Yankees is okay. I do want to comment on what you're saying, Blender, because see, for me, I'm a handicapper at heart, and so I'm not always going to agree with the projections, and so in waiting, if I'm going to go against the bat that day, as an example, and I'm not. So let me get this out there. I'm not always going against the bat. I'm not always going against our projections, but sometimes I will. And so when that is the case, like for instance, yesterday, I went against the bat on Peralta. Like Peralta opened at 7.5. He was at 7.5. Everybody took the under. I just waited all day until he got to 7.
I think that's the key. Will, when you're against that, what did I mention before? Get the best price, get the best number. If you could see that, because Peralta opened at 7.5,
correct,
right, with strikeouts. And of course, I look at the bat projections and our plate IQ projections. And if you go based on the pitch count and the projected Pirates lineup that day, he was projected for like a mean of like 6.2, 6.3.
Yep, that's exactly what it was.
I hammered the under. I made as many, like 4 picks, 5 picks with him Peralta moves to 7, right?
And then I took him.
And then because if you're gonna wait for the better number, don't take over 7.5 when you could get over 7. And hell, depending on how you think the market is gonna move, maybe you wait even later till it gets to 6.5, and then you take the over.
Right, and let's talk through that, because I think what people have to understand is sometimes the sports book is different than the pick'em site, right? So on the sports book, I'm going to take that 7.5 because I'm getting it plus money. So that, like, you have to understand that, like, I'm getting plus money. But the difference is, I think for me, is when the lines are moving, I just pull up SAO and I say, okay, this is at 6.5 right now, but it's looking like it's going to shift down. So I just wait for the next update. It shifts down. If I want the over, then I take it at 6 versus 6.5, because now I've got some value. And so we're basically doing the same thing in reverse. And I'm doing the same thing you're doing as well. If it's if I know it's going to shift down, obviously I got to take it right away. But if I want the over or the under in a different direction, I just wait for the line to move, and then I get it at that point later in the day. To me, that's the only value in late, is if you're trying to handicap that day and you know the line's going to shift.
Right. That goes along with the fact that most of sports betting is not picking the right team or picking the right prop. It's just getting the best price and best number for what you do want to do. Even if you don't have an edge handicapping or with projections, like, dude, like, there's no reason, if you're going to bet on tonight's game, like, for, a total, that if FanDuel has it at, whatever the total is, over -110, and DraftKings has it at -115, like just bet it on FanDuel at -110. I mean, like the 5 cents, like, you don't think much of it, even on a $10 bet now, but add that up. If you just add it all up and you see at the end of the year, it's like, wow, if I just moved my thumb to the other app and clicked on the button there, and I did that a couple of times a day for a grand total of 12 seconds, it would have been the difference of $4,000 or $5,000 by the end of the year.
Right. Yeah, and man, look, I think it's important to talk about that, because realizing, the holes in your process, that's how you get better. You know what I'm saying? And so one side isn't better than the other. You just have to know the game, right? You just have to know the game. And so if, for instance, and I think you brought up something that was beautiful there, there's a big difference in getting something at -120 every day and -140 every day. Like, by the end of the year, like, it's a huge difference.
Humongous difference. There's a humongous difference of those.
Yeah. And like you said, you might not see it every day, and that's specifically talking sports books, because that's where it's going to come into play and be most important. But I think on the pick'em sites, understanding how they move, right? So I know, and the best lines compared to projections are right when they start dropping the projections, right when they start dropping their product. Right. That's if you're gonna follow the projections, you better get it right then and there. Like, and for us, that's 2, 3, 4 in the morning, right?
So it depends on. They post throughout the day. It's not the type of thing. So they'll post a couple overnight. They'll post a couple in the morning. Typically, fantasy point projections
come out,
go up on Underdog and Prize Picks not until like 11 a.m. Like, it's like a series throughout. But knowing how the market works and when they release stuff definitely helps you get the best price or the best number.
Yeah, and when the fantasy point props come out on Underdog, it's a little bit different. You've probably got, I'm going to give you, Blender, 3 to 5 minutes to identify and get them right, because if you don't, they're going to start shifting immediately, like in the way that you don't want, right? Prize Picks is a little bit different. I will say this year, Prize Picks has not put out as many early on. They've been a lot more staggered outside of the early strikeouts. So they'll give you a nice mix of strikeouts, but then there's an update that's going to come somewhere between 9:30, and that's when you're going to get the bumps one way or another. and then they will add more strikeout offerings, right? And then as the lines shift again, they will bump again accordingly. So once you know how they're going to work it, last year was a little different because they put them all out early in the morning. If you didn't get them, like, forget it.
So for today on Prize Picks, so you're for the Eduardo Rodriguez strikeouts?
Yeah. At 5.5, I'm taking more. I'm taking more than 5.5 against the Yankees. And realistically, I haven't been high on Carlos Rodon. I've pretty much taken less than his projection every start, Blender, and it's mostly worked out. I'm just not thrilled about him today. At 28.5 fantasy points, though, I'm going less than Carlos Rodon on that against Detroit.
Okay, well, you can get more of Chiefs picks and pick'em stuff and prop stuff with our props and pick'em package here at RotoGrinders, as well as, releases those videos almost every day. You could subscribe to this YouTube channel, the Scores and Odds channel, the YouTube Shorts. Chief, where else can people find you on Twitter?
Yeah, find me on Twitter at ChiefJustice06. In terms of football, I'll be doing the Prize Picks videos this year. I'll be on the Blitz Show with Derek Carty and Alex Dunlap, and I will be your host this season, all season, except my wedding weekend, the weekend I get married, for the Sunday showdowns. Every Sunday night showdown, I will be on talking a little bit about that particular slate. So it should be a fun season.
Okay, well, check out that stuff. Click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your combo premium RotoGrinders subscription. You get everything. You get all the content I've shown you. The Showdown, Sims, the HQ, the Showdown NFL lineup advice, Squirrel Patrol. You get the grind down. Some of the stuff is for premium. Some of the stuff is, we got some free stuff up. Go to rotogrinders.com. Check it all out. And we'll be talking a little bit more about NFL Week 1 strategy tomorrow. And tonight we got Grinders Live for MLB. We got Crunch Time. We got the Showdown pre-lock show. We got tons of content coming out tomorrow for NFL as well. So subscribe to the channel. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Because I go live here Monday through Fridays, 11 o'clock Eastern on RotoGrinders Today.